Okay, I want to make a touch on a few points before the migraines kick back in. You know, they get bad. My eyes hurt. They feel like somebody's got them in their hands and crushing them. So I'm going to take advantage of it. I know how this is going to long this is going to last. Sometimes the migraines last for hours, sometimes days, sometimes longer. Okay, there's been this. I've seen some politicians saying Russia was communist and socialism leads to communism, and well, so anyways, I once mentioned to somebody that we were living in an oligarchy. No, we're not. This is capitalist country. And okay, so let's go review this. An oligarchy is a form of government where power rests in the hands of a small elite groups of people. This group often defined by wealth, plurocracy, family ties, corporate control, military power, or religious status. Key characteristics: ruled by the few, power is not shared with the general public. A tiny fraction of society makes major decisions. Small interest leaders often use policies, laws, and the economy to benefit their own small class or protect their wealth. Hidden or open control: the ruling group might hold formal government titles, or they might subtly control elected officials from behind the scenes using money and influence. Types and forms: plutocracy, ruled by the wealthiest members of society. Corporate oligarchy, controlled, held by large businesses and monopolies or industrial leaders. Aristocracy, ruled by traditional class or noble families or people with inherited titles. Advantages and disadvantages. Pros. Decisions can be made very quickly because only a few people need to agree. Cons. High levels of corruption. Extreme gap between the rich and the poor. Lack of freedom or voice. For everyday people, and social unrest. Okay, so I did a video on this before, but it was called corporacy. A corporacy is a political and economic system where large corporations hold disappropriate power over government policies, laws, and public life. In this system, corporate interests shape the rules of society to benefit a small economic elite rather than the general public. Key factors: political influence. Companies use heavy lobbying and campaign funding to guide legislation. Uh, Regulatory capture. Government agencies meant to protect the public end up serving business interests instead. Reduce competition. Monopolies form, making it hard for small businesses to survive. Uh, Weaken democracy. Public choice matters less as corporate money dictates political outcomes. Forms of method: dark money, unseen funds injected into elections to support uh, friendly politicians. Crony capitalism: favors and tax breaks traded between the state and selected businesses. Oligarch policies: a few massive firms control the entire market and set their own terms. And it's been in the past. It's in our present. Okay, but there was corporacy examples. Some researchers have said the U.S. may be drifting towards a form of oligarchy as individual citizens have less impact than economic elites and organized interest groups upon public policy. In the U.S. Congress itself, more than half of the members are millionaires. Keep voting for rich people, they're going to run them like their companies. You know how they hate unions. You know, when this country was formed, you know, a lot of people, everybody around the world hated unions. So that's when the colony decided to unite. Uh, okay. So I thought you should know. Okay. Now, if we were actually socialist country, Switzerland is a primary country where the people must routinely vote on specific laws, resolutions, and constitutional amendments through a system called mandatory referendum. How it works in Switzerland, constitutional changes. Any change to the Swiss constitution passed by parliament must automatically go to the public vote. It cannot pass without approval from both the voters and the cantons. International treaties. Joining major international or security organizations requires a mandatory public vote. Emergency laws. Urgent federal laws passed without a solid constitutional basis must be put to a public vote within a year. Operational referendum. Citizens can also force a public vote on normal laws passed by Parliament if they collected 50,000 signatures. Other countries with mandatory public votes. Australia. Changes to the national constitution require passing Parliament and then winning a nationwide public referendum. Ireland. Any amendment to the Irish Constitution must be approved by the people in a public vote after passing through Parliament. Sounds like some great ideas to me. Like I said, talked about corporacy. I mean, who does? I mean, our trustees side with? You know, our politicians, our public servants. Legally and ethically, all public servants are required to place the public interest above private gains. Laws, oath of office, and the code of conduct treat public service as a public trust, meaning officials must act impartially and avoid conflicts of interest and serve the community rather than themselves. Legal ethical duties, standards of ethical conduct for employees. The state public service requires putting loyalty to the law and public ahead of private money, no private gains. Workers cannot use their official position or hidden government data to help friends, family, or themselves make money. Impartiality. Laws forbid public workers from giving special favors to any single person or group. Challenges in practice. Defining the public interest. People disagree on what's in the public interest actually means for the big issues like taxes and new codes. The greater good, people. Basically, the greater good, not for a minority of the people, and not even for the majority if it conflicts with the interests of the common good of the individual. But the individual right does not override that of any other person. Okay, remember, the law applies equally to everybody. The rule of law states that. Competing pressures. Elected leaders and civil servants often feel pressure from political parties, special interest groups, or specific voters instead of the whole community. Economic gaps. When strong rules exist on paper, tracking and punishing every minor conflict or self-serving choice is hard. So that's why I mentioned the greater good. Okay, how ethics violations. So, basic obligations of public service, which I love to go over. I'm a big fan of history. Thomas Jefferson enunciated the basic principles of public service when a man assumes a public trust, meaning a trustee, a politician, a lawyer, a judge. These are trustees. He should consider himself as public property. The sentiment has been expressed by numerous others over time, becoming a familiar principle. Public service is a public trust to ensure the confidence and the integrity of federal government. Executive Order 12674, as amended, from the framework for ethical behavior required and expected of all federal employees, a condition of public service which is expected to adhere to these fundamental principles of ethical behavior. Public service is a public trust requiring you to pay loyalty to the Constitution, the laws, and ethical principles about private gain. You shall not hold financial interests that conflict with conscientious performance of your duty. You shall not engage in financial transactions using non-public government information and allow improper use of self-information and further any private interest. You shall not accept, pursuant to such reasonable expectation as provided by the regulations, solicit or accept any gift other than item or monetary value from a person and entity seeking an official action from doing so business or concluding activities regulated by your agency, or whether these interests may be substantially affected by the performance or non-performance of your duties. You shall make no unauthorized commitments or promises of any kind purported to bind the government. You shall put forth honest effort in the performance of your duties. You shall not engage in outside employment or activities, including seeking or negotiating for employment, that conflict with your official government duties and responsibilities. You shall disclose waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption to appropriate authorities. That's why we have the whistleblowers complaint. And seriously, why do we have to protect whistleblowers when it's their job to blow the whistle? You shall satisfy in good faith your obligations as citizens, including all just financial obligations, especially those of federal tax, local taxes, and imposed by law. You shall adhere to all laws and regulations that provide equal opportunities for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, color, sex, including pregnancy, parental status, national origin, disability, family, medical history, or genetic information, political affiliation, or military service. You shall not use your political office for private gain. You shall act impartially and not give preferential treatment to any private organization or individual. You shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it for other than authorized activity. You shall endeavor to avoid any actions creating the appearance that you are violating the law. The standards of ethical conduct for employees for executive branch, 5 CFR Part 2635, the Department of Interior Supplemental Ethics Regulation, 5 CFR Part 501 or Executive Order 12674. And that ain't happening, is it? Okay. What are we? Are we actually a democracy? Democracy is a system of government where power belongs to the people. Citizens exercise this power either by voting directly or laws or by electing leaders to make rules for them. The word comes from the ancient Greek words meaning people and power. Power comes from the people. Voting rights. Citizens choose their leaders in free and fair elections. All people have equal rights to take part in government. Minority rights. The majority rules, but minority groups keep basic protections. Main types. Direct democracy. Citizens vote directly on laws and policies instead of using leaders. That's direct democracy. Citizens vote directly on laws and policies instead of using leaders. Representative democracy. Citizens elect officials to make laws and run the government for them. Freedom of speech, press, religion, key features. Rule of law, where laws apply to everybody equally. Peaceful transfer of power when leaders change. All right, just come up a few talking points that people were expressing on. I watched some of those political shows, what was it, Meet the Press, and they were talking about socialism becomes communism, and no, not literally speaking. It's in a matter of opinion. That's a homeschool attitude, something that was passed down through mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. And that's showing, political bias. And me, I'm apolitical. Apolitical means no interest, involvement, or connection to politics or political parties. It can describe a person who does not care about government or voting. I care about government and voting. I'm just trying to get them to live up to the oath. Or an organization, institution that remains completely neutral and unbiased. I'm totally biased. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I'm anti-establishment, politicians. Sometimes I agree with politicians because they're doing what's in the public interest. And I told you. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff you can. Public servants are legally, ethically required to put the public interest above personal gain. And it goes back to the basic obligations of public service. I don't know, you tell me. Are we a autocracy, plutocracy, corporacy, democracy, a constitutional republic? Yes, a constitutional republic is a form of representative democracy. It blends popular rule through elected leaders with the Supreme Constitution. It protects basic rights and limits the power of the majority. The terms are not opposed to each other. Rather, a republic defines how power is structured, while democracy defines where that power comes from. Elected leaders. Citizens vote for representatives to make laws instead of voting on every law themselves. Rule of law. A written constitution acts as the highest law. Limited power. The government cannot just do whatever a simple majority wants. Protected rights. Laws safeguard majority groups and individual freedoms from unchecked public shifts. Democracy versus republic. Direct democracy, everyone votes on every single issue. Constitutional republic, people choose officials, and those officials must obey written laws and limits. Okay, so I'm just going by what is written. I'm just a messenger. I'm taking you a walk through my mind on the internet. People want to say we're a constitutional republic. Some people say, no, we're a democracy. I'm telling you we're both. A combination. It's a symbiotic relationship, such as that as the rule of law and the spirit of the law. I use the rule of law, or the letter of the law, and the spirit of the law. I use the letter of the law so that we all see, say, and hear the same thing, which is in the spirit of the law. So that we all see, so there's no misinterpretation. It's far too often I've dealt with those in the legal community that like to violate, have a vast tendency to violate the letter of the law. So in the spirit of the law, I always cite the letter of the law. Okay, so you give me your opinion. I just took you through a ride through my mind on the internet to point out a few literal indiscretions when people talk about democracy, plutocracy, autocracy, fascism, socialism, communism. All right, but tell me what you think. What are we? I mean, literally, legally, we are a democracy, a constitutional republic. Okay? Literally, I mean, legally, we're supposed to be, according to the Constitution, according to the rule of law, according to the basic obligations of public service. All right, people, you have a good day. May your Creator always be with you and rain many blessings. I wish you a long life and good health. Good night.